you are sticking your finger in the eye of God, which will always get his negative attention. And he said that I am the defender of Israel. God said, he that keepeth Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God placed his reputation on the preservation of Israel.
Wow.
As the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so is the Lord round about his children forever. And whenever we are now in the third day of the prophetic presentation of Scripture, we are anticipating the rapture of the church at any time. We are in the last days. And this moment in time in history gives us the recognition that God has all of the players in perfect position. Israel is not just surviving. Israel is prospering. Israel is fulfilling every prophecy Ezekiel ever made about them. A man who couldn't possibly get to be president became president. Donald J. Trump. I mean, when he first started, people thought he's doing this to advertise his hotels and his products. And then it caught on, and the American people put this man in office, and he made promises that he was going to recognize Jerusalem, that he would move the embassy, he would break out of the Iran deal. Those three things by themselves, plus the making of the Golan Heights, the sovereign property of Israel.
We'll kind of pause right here there. You're looking also there with John Hagee as Paul Crouch Jr. and his wife. Oddly enough, both of them had sent me friend requests on Facebook years ago, and so they're still, as far as I know, they're still on my Facebook page there as friends. We've communicated from time to time. But I wanted to play this here because John Hagee, of course, is a major supporter of Israel, and a lot of people really believe that Israel is going to rule the world, and they believe it's a prophetic promise. Well, the thing is, the law that comes out of Jerusalem was the words of Jesus Christ when he brought the new covenant. That's what the law really was. But tonight, this is a very special broadcast that I wanted to share with you about the 21st degree Mason, the Noahide judges. And that's part of, and that's why I played that little clip for you, because part of Israel ruling the world and being the head of the New World Order, even a one-world religion, is that once they establish this New World Order and it comes into full power, then we are going to see enforced on the entire planet the Noahide laws. Now, the sad thing is, when you're dealing with the Noahide laws, is they have, not only, of course, they're going to be enforced by the Jewish people, but specifically, they have the 21st degree Masons that will actually enforce those laws. Now, oddly enough, I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, an attorney, who said to me, in the court systems in the United States, practically every judge and nearly every attorney is a Freemason. Well, that seems to be kind of odd, if you ask me, but it's certainly something I can believe. And as I think about that, I cannot help but believe that they've already begun to enforce those laws, especially on those that interfere with the program of Israel becoming the head of the New World Order. Because what's very important to Israel is the support of the evangelical community. That's why I don't find it anything strange when I see in the video here Paul Crouch with his wife, Brenda, I believe it is, sitting there together in support with John Hagee over Israel. And then, of course, they bring in Donald Trump, and we saw that image there of Trump there when he's signing the agreement with just play that again for you there. There you go, right there, shaking hands with Netanyahu there. Then he signs the agreement for Israel and stuff. And he's now announced that he's going to run for president again. And I can't help but believe that he'll probably get reelected. You know, I know the Biden administration actually is concerned that people will consider them the resurrected saints. That's the way it was actually quoted to me. Maybe they'll look at them as the two witnesses, or perhaps even as many of the rabbis in Israel have said, the Mashiach ben Joseph and ben David. Well, who will be who? I don't really know the answer to that question there. But nonetheless, once Israel gains that full power of the world, then the full enforcement of the Noahide laws will be incumbent upon every nation on the planet. And the Masons will enforce those Noahide laws. So I did this video here, 21st Degree Mason, Noahide Judges. I'll include a link for you in the description. The only place it's available now is on BitChute. It used to be on Patreon. Had to be removed from Patreon because you can't say anything like I'm saying now on Patreon. So, in fact, I've actually put this video on iConnect FX. Not sure exactly how I'm going to load it, or if it'll be on Israeli News Live YouTube, and if it is, it will not be on very long. Because I'm going to reveal to you some things that have happened in our family that I believe may very well reflect judgment of the 21st Degree Mason that has impacted our own family. And I think tonight as you listen, you'll better understand what I'm talking about. I do have to speak a little bit evasive in this because there are certain things that cannot be said as of yet. I do know that there has been a channel out there that did release things. We're not supposed to, but they did release things about the events that have transpired around our family. And so there's been quite a few people that have written my wife about that, expressing her condolences for the death of her father. But it has been very tragic what has happened in this family. I have alluded to it on multiple occasions, and again, unfortunately, I will still have to allude to some degree even tonight. If we look at Israel National News, the 7 Noahide laws, Arutz Shiva, major sections of the Torah, basic laws of the whole of mankind. This is something they put out a little while back, and said the Torah is not only for the Jews, but major sections are basic laws for the whole of mankind, known as the Shiva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, the 7 laws of the sons of Noah. And of course, those laws in jest are: do not worship idols, do not curse God, do not murder, do not commit immoral sexual acts, do not rob, steal money, or kidnap. Establish courts of justice. Judges and magistrates exist in each district to administer the Noahide laws. Notice that, to administer the Noahide laws. Do not eat the limb of flesh from a living animal. Now, for the most part, as you look at those laws, they appear to be similar to that of the 10 Commandments. But what people do not realize is that the 7 Noahide laws come with a lot of sub-laws. This is just a few of them here, like you have right there, no idolatry. Then you see 10 sub-laws under that. No blasphemy. Well, you see 8 sub-laws. Well, there's actually far more than that. We're going to look at that in just a moment. But this one right here, in no blasphemy, the second law there, to honor the scholars and to revere one's teachers, is something that Israel would consider that our family has broken. That what we've done on Israeli News Live and exposing the Noahide laws, exposing the New World Order agenda, that's considered a law that we have not honored. Well, it actually, the laws of the Noahide laws are punishable by decapitation. That the court is to administer the death penalty by the sword, i.e. decapitation. And then they quote Exodus 21:20, the sin shall surely be avenged. Well, that, of course, is one of the ways that they're planning on enforcing those. No wonder why Obama had all these guillotines, right? But just to kind of show you, I'm going to play Tovia Singer. Tovia Singer, also a friend on Facebook, and we've communicated over the years together, and disagreements on multiple issues. But anyway, I want to play a little clip here because Tovia will kind of give you an idea about just how many sublaws there really are under the Noahide laws. So it's not just a matter of what you think they are right there. It's those sublaws that get really dicey. Listen in.
How a Jew is different than a non-Jew is really very simple. This is the least complicated thing you're going to hear tonight. Is we are here is to bring the Malchus Shaddai, to bring the kingdom of God to this world. We say it in the Olenu every day. That's we are here to be a Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, because the world belongs to me, and God told us that when? No. He told us right before the Ten Commandments. Ten Commandments, Exodus 20, that's Exodus 19, verse 5 and 6. The whole purpose, that means the whole role of a Jew, is to ensure that the rest of the world comes to know about the God of Israel. We're really here to facilitate you. But it's more than this. Let me explain. There's really more than 70. There's really over 100 commandments incumbent on a Noahide. It's beyond the scope of anything we're going to do tonight. But it's a good idea too.
I don't know if you heard what he said there. There's more than 70. There's about 100 commandments that are incumbent upon the Noahide. The Noahide is the Gentiles that are to keep the Noahide laws. So Tovia Singer says there's at least 100 of those sublaws, not even like in here where you only got about 50, 60, something like that are mentioned. And if you break those laws, you end up having your head taken off, right? Well, the 21st degree Mason is a Noahide or a Prussianite. What's interesting is what some of the things that are written here. 1700s and early 1800s, there was a strong Masonic tradition which placed Noah as one of the craft's major patrons involved with the preservation of the knowledge of the antediluvian arts and sciences during the flood and its transmittal to the generations which followed. Some systems went so far as to make Noah the central legendary figure rather than Hiram. Freemasons were sometimes called Noahites or Noahide, sons of Noah. And in the degree, the story intermingles with the Wilhelmite, a medieval court headquartered in Westphalia, hence the term Prussian Knight. It is a strange combination, but it produces one of the most powerful and theatrical degrees of the rite. All the elements of the high drama are there, meeting the forest, night light, full moon, men, integrity, power, force to confront personal biases they do not know existed within themselves, the ease with which one may fall into dishonor, the power of faith. All this more takes the stage in this degree. It is a powerful cautionary tale. Now, the apron of the 21st degree is yellow, lined with white, on the flap and the arm of justice, i.e., the arm holding a naked sword prepared to strike. On the body of the apron is a winged human figure. The forefinger of his right hand is on the lips, and he holds the key in the left hand. He is the Egyptian figure of silence. In The Bridge to Light, Dr. Rex Hutchinson, the 33rd degree Grand Cross, points out that the wings are an addition, that Plato indicated wings symbolized intelligence, while to the alchemists they represented the higher active male principle. Now, what's important is what I have highlighted in blue in this next paragraph here, right? It says here, Fiat justita ruat colium. Let there be justice, though the heavens fall. Let there be justice, though the heavens fall. I also find that very interesting that they use that terminology and the fact, though the heavens fall, because at the time that this courts are to be set up and that Israel is to try to rule the world, even though they're using scripture that has no bearing on that whatsoever, but it's also at a time where, written in the Egyptian writings, that it speaks about the heavens or the dimensions themselves collapsing in upon one another. And the fallen angels, being in mourning over the collapse of all these things. So, let there be justice, though the heavens fall, has a far deeper meaning, I think, than most could ever even imagine. Thought I would just share that with you. The Council of the Kodesh. I've seen it in English. It's kind of irritating for me. But anyway, again, it just describes the way what we just read a moment ago, but I thought it was interesting. The Council of Kodesh, which is like the Council of the Holy. So they consider that 21st degree Mason as a Noahite, as a holy council to bring about justice, to enforce those 100 somewhat odd Noahide laws, right? Crazy as it may sound. Here we go again. The dress is entirely black except the gloves and the apron with the sword, spurs, and a black mask. They're dressed like executioners. I had one time where I found a picture and I couldn't find it this time around here. I guess I took it down after I posted it the first time around. The order is a broad black ribbon worn from right to the left, and the jewel of the golden triangle traversed by an arrow pointed downward suspended from the collar. All right, but the main thing is the fact that I want you to see that they dress in all black with a hood on their head, just like the executioners we see in these other different films there. All right, now, this is where it's going to get very troubling. Maybe before I go into the Auschwitz-Birkenau, I'm going to go into a little bit more about these Noahides. The Noahide and the Noahites. This is from the book right here, and I'm going to just read a little bit about this. This is how they kind of got set up. This is on page 409 of the book here, and I'm going to take you all the way back to the top of this book here. So we know what book we're looking at. Here we go. The History of Freemasonry by Albert Mackey, M.D. Symbolism of Freemasonry is where the book's from. I'm actually going to read some from those pages, 409 on down right here, where you have James Anderson, who is speaking about in here. And James Anderson was a Jewish man that had infiltrated into the Masons. Not to say the Masons were a good club. They weren't, but I'm just saying this. And this was basically to be able to instill the Noahide laws and to basically rewrite their bylaws. They almost got written out. There were two different more volumes that were done, that were updated, that took them out, and then they were put back in, and they've remained in ever since then. It says Anderson, who in the Book of Constitutions modified and enlarged the old craft legends at his pleasure, caused Noah and his 3 sons all Mason true. It says they brought over from the flood the traditions and arts of the antediluvians and communicated them to their growing offspring. Continuing on in the blue right here, Anderson seems to have cherished this idea, for in the second edition of the Constitutions, he still further develops it by saying that the offspring of Noah, as they journeyed from the east, the plains of Mount Ararat, where the ark rested towards the west, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and dwelt there together with the Noahide, or sons of Noah. And he adds, without the slightest historical authority, that this word Noahide was the first name of Masons. According to some old traditions, it would have puzzled him to specify any such tradition. Having thus invented and adopted the name as this distinctive designation of a Mason, he repeats it in the second edition and revision of the old charges appended to the Book of Constitutions. The first of these charges, the Constitutions in 1723, contained this passage: a Mason is obliged by his tenure to obey the moral law. In addition, in 1738, Dr. Anderson has, without authority, completed the sentence by adding the words, as a true Noahide. This interpolation was rejected by Ethic and edited the third and fourth editions in 1756 and 1767, but, have no fear, Northup, who published the fifth in 1784, both of whom restored the old reading, which has ever since been preserved in all constitutions of the Grand Lodge of England. So James Anderson was able to make his bylaws stayed in there so they would have in place a court system for a new world order in the coming years. Imagine if you go back and you compare some of the writings of, who is it? Gaon Vilna and look at some of the things that he speaks about, you would see they were preparing this New World Order long before the time ever got here. And don't forget who they have working with them. Sometimes people wonder, how do these guys know these things? Well, you know, those little guys out there that live a heck of a lot longer than humans do, yeah, they're able to instruct them. Dr. Oliver, and under his example, it has become so common use that Noahide and Freemason have come to be considered as synonymous terms. That's kind of weird. These 7 precepts are, and of course they give them right in here, right inside of their own books there: to do justice, worship God, abstain from idolatry, preserve chastity, do not commit murder, do not steal, and do not eat the blood. These 7 obligations, say the Reverend Dr. Rafal, are held binding on all men, insomuch in all descendants of Noah, and the rabbins maintain that he who observes them, though he be not an Israelite, has a share in the future life. And it is a duty of every Jew to enforce their due observance whenever he has the power to do so. Now that right there is very key right there, that he's to enforce them. It's incumbent upon that Jew. It's his duty to enforce to do the observance whenever he has the power. It is the duty of every Jew to enforce their due observance when he has the power to do so. Now, what does it mean to enforce the observance? Make sure that the Noahide, the 21st degree Mason, to make sure that Gentiles are obeying those Noahide laws when he has the power to do so. So does that mean then that Israel really has to be fully in control and empower the New World Order to be able to enforce punishment, the death penalty for breaking one of these Noahide laws? I can tell you personally from our own family, I don't believe so. Let me read a little bit more and then we'll go into some of these other issues. Admitted to all the privileges of the Jewish religion, and marriage with Israelites was forbidden, and they were not permitted to enter within the sacred enclosure of the temple, so that although they are Noahites, they were not considered equal to true children of Abraham. So that's another thing that's very important to know there. Noahites, or Gentiles, you're not considered equal to that of a Jew. Cross in his 3 oldest documents, it is alleged to be a copy of the York Constitution enacted in 926, but is generally admitted by scholars to be spurious, yet it is probable that it was originally written by a contemporary of Anderson about the time. It may have been 1926. I'm not really sure on that. They may have had a typo there. That originally written by the contemporary Anderson and about the time of publishing of the constitutions of 1738, it may be accepted so far as it supplies us with a suggestion that the motive that induced Anderson to interpolate the word Noahide into the old charges. The first obligation that you shall sincerely honor God, obey the laws of the Noahites, because they are divine laws, which should be obeyed by all the world. Therefore you must avoid all heresies and not thereby sin against God. By the way, excluding therefore atheism and requiring the observance of such simple laws of morality as are enjoined in the precepts of Noah. I'm going to kind of stop right there for now. Let me just see what else that I had on here. This really kind of goes into some of the same things that I've already read to you there. This is from Chabad.org. That's going into the different, some of the bylaws as well, where they speak about that. But what I wanted to talk to you about more specifically, though, and we'll just come back over here to where I have the 21st degree Mason video there for that for right now, is in our own family. As I've alluded to on multiple occasions already, is that our family became a target. And I can remember when My wife asked me one day, because she's very distraught, and she is distraught still to this day, almost a year later after her father, my father-in-law, Stefan, passed away. And he did not pass away of natural causes. His life was cut short. There was a treatment that was administered to him, two different types of treatments. A treatment that was also administered to myself and to my wife as well, that have caused us very serious consequences as a result. One of those treatments that the three of us all got exactly the same, but not in the same dosages, was that of 21 milliliters of peroxide intravenously. I'm putting on the screen for you now the Auschwitz-Birkenau, Auschwitz.org on their website. And I want to read a little something here for you as I discuss this with you a little bit more. Let me just back it down a little bit. The first selection of Auschwitz within the framework of euthanasia program took place on July 28, 1941. A special medical commission came to the camp that day and chose 575 disabled, chronically ill, and elderly prisoners, mostly from among the hospital's patients. The commission sent them to the Sanitarian Mental Institution in Saxony, where they were put to death with carbon monoxide. As a follow on this selection, there were trials in 1941 of killing seriously ill prisoners by injecting them highly concentrated solutions into their veins, which included using hydrogen perfidrol, ether, hydrogen peroxide, benzene, Evapon, and phenol. And then it goes on to continue more information about this. But I highlighted in green for you one particular lethal injection. There's another case that actually happened in South Carolina back in, I believe it was in the 90s, where a doctor used this thing here in green as a treatment that caused hemolysis and the subsequent death of the patient. That doctor, though, was actually using what would be considered the max dosage, and I believe it was 3.5 milliliters. It was done over several times, though, but the patient ended up succumbing to that. But nowhere has it been, or is there any, or excuse me, I should say, nowhere can we find where any protocol has called for 21 milliliters of this solution to be placed into an IV bag and delivered into a patient. If 3.5 milliliters given on several occasions could have caused the death of a patient in South Carolina, could you imagine what 21 milliliters would do? Especially if it's given on multiple occasions, or even nebulizing for a renal patient 80 times in a dosage that would cause the most horrific chemical burns you could ever imagine to a man that is 80 years old. We kept trying to wrap our heads around this. When you're dealing with an oxidative therapy like peroxide, in low dosage, like 1.5 or 2.5 given once or twice, it could be beneficial. Not saying that it is, but it could be. I know at one point it saved my father-in-law's life at a very low dosage about 8 years prior to that. But they always say what makes something deadly is in the amount that you give. And 21 milliliters, that's one of these big fat syringes here. And that's only 20 mils filled all the way to capacity plus some. Being injected into you at one time. My father-in-law saw no less than 6 to 7 times. And of course, we had no clue whatsoever that this was lethal. We actually trusted what was being told to us. My wife also, multiple times, has suffered collapsed veins, unusual bruising on the sternum. And when you go to research and find out later how dangerous this is and how deadly it is, it's a miracle she's even survived. Myself, I had it twice. And it has caused trouble with my heart, blood clotting, hemolysis, as they say as well, low oxygen saturation. And you realize something is wrong. And again, though, the subject kept coming up. Why 21 milliliters? We searched everywhere. Couldn't find any protocol. Nothing existed. The highest protocol, I think, was 3.5 milliliters. That's the highest protocol you could find. And that's not even FDA approved, but that's just what naturopathic physicians will use. At the very most. In fact, my own doctor here in Tennessee, I asked him about it. And he showed me the protocol right from the very books that he has on where he did the study for oxidative therapy. But he said, I won't even use it. He said, it's such a risk to use it. He said, I won't even use it in my own practice. He said, I was trained in it, but he said, I prefer to use ozone and not peroxide. And then one day, me and my wife were sitting together, and she was very distraught, and she was just weeping over what happened to her father. And she said, why, Stephen, why 21 mils? And then it came to me. And I remembered this video right here that I did. And I said to her, one, I believe we were targeted. And I said, the only logical explanation I can see is that we have violated the Noahide laws. And they have sent their judge. And the message was in the dosage. Because if you're being injected with 21 milliliters, then maybe the message is to let you know your judge has showed up. And that's my thought. I can't say I'm right on this. I do believe that everyone deserves the right to be heard. But I do know that nonetheless, regardless of which way this case ends up going, my father-in-law paid with his life. My wife nearly paid with hers, and as well myself. And the odd thing is in each case, because she got more than I did, her symptoms were worse than what mine were. I do have a collapsed vein from where it was being infused into my arm. That vein is collapsed. My wife has collapsed throughout her entire body. Veins are collapsed everywhere. And as I said, my father-in-law, though, he was not only given intravenously, but he was also given through a nebulizer. And according to my doctor in Florida, who also is trained in this therapy and does use it, said the nebulization was 80 times the normal dosage that should be given, or at least what he uses. I will say it that way there. And it did cause epithelial damage, and my father-in-law, well, I can't say what he said, because that's something that needs to remain anonymous at this point here. But I can tell you there was no way he could survive it. And pretty much anyone should know that's a physician that a renal patient could not handle something like that. This is why you have seen that my wife has not been back in videos very much at all anymore. It has had a heavy, heavy toll on her. And sadly enough, these here that want to inflict and enforce these laws have succeeded in one regard to silence all the information that was coming out. Those of you that know our channel here, I'll quickly go here. I want to show you something here. Actually, you know what? Better yet, let me show you on our website. Because we have a place on our website where you can see this. I say you do. I say we do. I've seen it before, so let me figure out where it's at. Well, maybe it's not. I could have sworn it was on our website, but I thought we had a place on here where it talks about, Stephen Yanachat. Maybe that's it. Yeah, there it is right there. Just Stephen and Yanachat right there. And the Noahide laws. These are some of the videos that we have done. There's quite a few of them still left on here where we really expose those things they don't want you to know. This is what they didn't want Yana doing anymore. Even like in the case here, when I bring out messages that is showing you where these Masonic teachers are taking you down this New World Order road, one world religion, by putting in prophecies that are clearly against the Word of God. That's what they don't want you to know. So check those things out. In fact, and of course, and let me just quickly go to our channel again, though I think we still have here also on Israeli News Live. Let's see here. Yeah, create it. Here we go. Playlist, identifying the Antichrist. Let me go further over. New releases. I thought, let me just see. Let me look at them again. Identifying. No, I don't have a playlist on here. I thought I did have a playlist like I have on our website, but I don't. But anyway, there's a major risk when it comes to getting the truth out to you. And even the videos I've been doing lately, those are the type of videos they do not want up. Like here, Shocking Discoveries 2 and Shocking Discoveries Made. They don't want those type messages out. And I know this far more personal than you can ever imagine that we were targeted. I would love to say it wasn't the case, but it was. Thank God, though, it was not fully successful. But it's still a tragedy for my father-in-law, and it is a tragedy for my family because he was very much loved. And very difficult for my wife as well to endure this. So I'm asking you to keep us in your prayers. And we cannot say much anymore. I cannot name names. And I know that many of you already know. So I would just ask, though, even in fact, we may do this with no comments, mainly because I don't want names and things being publicized. I know there's going to be a lot of people, and you're going to be upset. You'll say, "Oh my gosh, Brother Steve, who is it? Who's the guy that did the video?" I just can't do that as of right now. So I pray that you kind of understand that for the time being. And this is too another reason why we do need your support financially, because it is a heavy burden that we're having to carry right now. Getting to justice is not cheap. It's just not. And I wish I could say more about that, but I just can't. Thank you, though, for your love and your kindness towards our family in these trying times, and we'll continue. I'll continue to produce everything I can. I know Yana occasionally she'll feel a little bit better, and she talks about wanting to try to do a video and stuff, but I know that still may be a little bit further down the road. We are planning, though, to speak publicly in meetings around the country. That is in the works going into the first of next year. So we are working on that, to where we can come and we can talk to you in person. And we have been given permission to speak somewhat publicly, but it has been requested too that be there has to be advice given before things can be said. Anyway, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. God bless you, and thank you for listening.